Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Solnar Swift Arc, and specifically I'm going to talk about the race, the Solnar. Okay, so this is the Solnar are really unique, okay, so let me talk about them a bit. So this is detail from the world itself of Solnar Swift Arc, the tabletop role-playing game that I am writing. So the Solnar are really very unique. They are native to the world of Solnar. So the genesis of the world of Solnar is shrouded a bit in mystery, but one of the things that is known is that as the world of Solnar was hurtling through the realm space that it's within, there was a essentially like a comet. There was a celestial body that that came through the atmosphere of Solnar. And when that happened, that celestial body was kind of, which was made primarily of glowing white rock, right? So essentially, the rock emit light at a high degree, okay? But it kind of shattered when it hit the atmosphere, and parts of it dug a trail across the face of Solnar on one side of Solnar, right? That was across well over 1,000 miles, okay? And it put these huge stones into the ground, okay? Now, the Solnar believe that, so the Solnar actually come from these rocks, right? So these rocks' existence on Solnar created the Solnar. And so what the Solnar are is they are beings of pure light. And the form they take currently is a humanoid form that does not have gender, okay? So it looks like two arms, 2 legs, torso, and a head, okay? But they don't have any features. So they don't have eyes, they don't have a mouth. They do have fingers, and they do have toes. And they look like humanoids in every single way, except they glow bright white, okay? When you look at them, it's a little bit like the sun, in that you would only hurt your eyes if you were to look at them nonstop for about a half an hour. But people who look at them often squint or blink, okay? They're very bright, okay? But the light that is emitted off of them, there's no heat, okay? Now here's, okay, so let's keep going here. All right, the Solnar radiate healing, all right? So now one thing I'm going to say, everything I'm about to say is true for all living beings, except the Shroud. The Shroud are exempt from virtually everything I'm about to say about the Solnar. And the Shroud, of course, are a race of pure shadow. The Solnar are a race of pure light. So humans, elves, even Cinderfangs, when they are in the presence of a Solnar, a few things happen. One, any wounds they have slowly heal. Okay, so just being in the presence of a Solnar will heal you. Not only will it heal your body, but the healing doesn't stop at you being healed. The energy and the light that comes off of the Solnar actually optimizes the people who are around them. Okay, and so basically, party members who have a Solnar within their party, who are within 50 feet of a Solnar on a regular basis, their bodies become optimized. So their sight becomes clearer, they become stronger. Any kind of extra body fat on their body or any type of weakness or impurity is cleansed and removed or replaced with purer, better forms of that person's race, right? So the people that are around Solnars actually become paragons, right? Now, from a practical perspective, this means attribute bonuses generally for people for all the other members of a Solnar who is in a Solnar party. Okay. In addition to their healing powers, They are, oh, that's right. So the other thing is they have a very unusual relationship to death and wounds themselves. So they don't really have any organs. They don't have, their physiology is a major mystery. But, they never get cut or wounded, right? Whenever anyone strikes a Solnar with intent to kill that Solnar, there's like a criteria that determines if it damages them. So for one, blunt force doesn't do any damage to a Solnar. It will knock them back, right? It will move their body in the same way it would a human. By the way, they actually do have weight and mass. Solnar are all exactly the same. They're all 6 feet tall and 170 pounds, period, right? They might range maybe an inch in height and maybe as much as 5 pounds, but even that is extremely rare, and that's usually seasonal. So they'll come back to that 6 foot, 170 pound norm, right? And there are a whole lot of theories from the other races about the Solnar. Maybe I'll deal with that in another. So the other thing is they're extremely fortunate. So there's a good fortune kind of seems to follow them, right? But let's talk about their physiology and how they're damaged, how they're wounded, and how they're killed, right? So actually, Solnar are never wounded, ever, right? So what happens is anytime that they are hit with enough force to kill a normal humanoid, right? If someone hits them with intent to kill them, if it's a blunt object, like if someone hits them with a club, it doesn't do any damage at all. If anyone uses any type of weapon that is designed to pierce flesh, right? To cut, to pierce, to slash flesh, what happens is the blade strikes the Solnar, and immediately, if it's a non-magical blade, whoever used that weapon against them has to roll, and on a 1, they have to roll a d20, and on a 1, they get, that weapon breaks, it sunders, okay? Now whether it broke or not, okay, the Solnar actually then has to test to see if they're killed. So they have to test to see if they die every single time that they're wounded, okay? Or actually every time they're struck with enough force that it would have a possibility, every time they're struck with an attack that was intended to kill them, right? Or even wound them. Sorry, I should have said that, right? So every time they're struck with the intent to wound them, whoever hit them with this type of weapon, an edged weapon, or a weapon with a point, will need to roll to see if that weapon is destroyed, and then they need to roll to see if they die, right? Now, Solnar, I'm about to talk about their behavior, which is really unique, and players have to play their behavior, which is one of the reasons why they're so powerful, is you don't have as much freedom when you play a Solnar because they have a very specific set of behaviors. So one of the things is their behaviors are so unique that the only way they ever join adventuring parties is that they have befriended someone. So the Solnar and the Shroud have their own history, and that history was before humans came. When humans came, they introduced a whole lot of things to Solnar and Shroud society, and also the same thing with dwarves and elves. So Solnar society and Shroud society was impacted by humans. So the humans were the first, though. And there are two things that the Solnar absolutely love about human society. They love human society's view of friendship, and they also love music. So those two things, they have a very unusual relationship with death, they have an unusual relationship with friendship, and they have an unusual relationship with music. So if they have befriended someone, it is somewhat, so the only reason that Solnar ever joined an adventuring party is because they have befriended one particular person within that group. And then as soon as they're there, they go along with that group, and the goodwill of that human, right? And it can be an elf or a Cinderfang, although it is much less common for Solnar to befriend Cinderfangs and for them to befriend elves. Okay, so one of the things that they do is once they've befriended them, the goodwill that the elf or the Cinderfang or the human extends out to their party, the Solnar then take on that goodwill as well, and they extend goodwill to those people as well. So one of the things that they, that go along that they do is, so once they have been struck by an attack which is intended to wound or kill them, they have to roll to see if they die, right? And so that player picks up a D12 and a D20, right? And they roll those D12s and a D20, and then the person that they're allied with, the person they're befriended to, they roll those same dice, a D12 and a D20. If the roll is the same, the D12 and the D20, then essentially what happens is if those two are exactly the same, so the D20 and the D12, that Solnar dies. They just die flat out. That's it. There's no wound. There's no HP. They just die, right? So one of the things that is interesting about the Solnar is they don't live that long. They usually only live between a year and 5 years. Now, one of the things is they have a shared consciousness, and so Solnar do not fear death very much at all. And one of the reasons why is Solnar are able to so there's a whole lot of unusual things about Solnars. So one of the things is Solnars don't speak, right? They don't actually say words. They don't have a mouth. They don't have eyes, right? So when they don't actually speak, they communicate telepathically, right? And they can communicate with any living being telepathically, and language is a complete non-issue. They just understand each other essentially natively, right? And they speak within each other's minds in languages that they understand. Okay, so Solnar don't learn other languages; they just communicate telepathically. So the Solnar, their life is bound to the person they're befriended to once they befriend that person and start traveling with them, right? So in order for that to even take place, they have to have traveled together and been together for 2 full moons, right? So 2 moon cycles of Solnar itself, okay? Like essentially a full rotation of the moon, not a single night, but essentially what's equivalent to a month on Solnar. So, so that's very unusual. And actually, I've been working on the math, and I still need to do the math. I really want the odds of a Solnar dying to be between like 1 in 400 and 1 in 1,000, right? So I may change the die there, but it's very unlikely. But when it happens, when you hit that terrible roll, you're just dead. Period. Out. Right? And that's one of the prices of playing a Solnar, right? Now that makes them incredibly powerful in combat, right? Well, we're going to get to actually they're a little more bound up in combat as well. So one of the things that is unique about, so there's a whole lot of things that are unique about Solnars, but one of the things that does occur, with Solnars is that they are okay. What am I thinking here? Right. So they, sorry, lost my train of thought there. Okay, back on track. All right. So all of these things. Oh, right. What are the behaviors that they actually exhibit? So the behavior that Solnars exhibit are very specific. Solnars are a noble race, right? and they take on only noble behavior. So Solnar have an incredible respect for all life, and they actually naturally are always seeking to optimize all life, which they do without even trying. It's just something that radiates out of them, right? And so they really abhor death, right? And they don't want anything to suffer. They don't want things to be wounded. They don't want any living things to be killed. Now, where that goodwill toward life ends is they will fiercely oppose anytime they see a stronger living creature preying upon another living creature or taking advantage of another living creature, right? So anytime they see where one living creature is interacting with another living creature, and the one living creature is getting benefits that outweigh by a factor of 3, 10, 100 times the factor of what the other living creature is receiving. So anytime that advantage deeply outweighs disadvantage, they are offended. Whenever they see someone who is stronger preying upon someone who is weaker, a living creature, that deeply, deeply offends them, okay? Now, one of the things is that's another thing. Solnar don't eat. They don't eat at all, right? So, in fact, and it gets even stranger, not only do the Solnar not eat, they don't make anything, right? So they literally just, they stay in natural places. They don't create buildings. Like they would live in caves, just to keep out the rain if they even needed to, right? So, or they would just sleep under the stars, right? They have a really and they don't get cold or hot, right? Their physiology is not really like any normal living creature's physiology. So, but anytime they see, particularly, a stronger person, a stronger living being preying upon a weaker living being, they will absolutely do everything they can to stop that, right? And that is offensive. Anytime someone's being taken advantage of, anytime, but mostly those two items, right? That they really get offended by that. So they're very noble, right? And so players need to play that, right? So a Solnar isn't going to walk into a bar, drink a bunch of mead. Well, they can't eat. They can't consume anything. They don't drink any liquids, and they don't consume any food. But they're not going to go into a bar, sit down, and then get into a bar fight. It would never happen. They would never attack anyone unwarranted, right? And they would never attack anyone who hasn't attacked them, right? Also, because they don't really need anything, right? They spend their lives just walking around Solnar, experiencing Solnar. The idea of someone taking something, the idea of ownership is difficult for them. But what they get upset about is when one person takes someone else's thing. They don't care about the thing. What they deeply care about is that the person the emotional strife that is caused by that one person. That's another thing. They see emotional wounds and intellectual wounds the same as physical wounds. So, and players need to play that, and that is very different, right? So really, Solnar are extremely different race, and I think they're balanced in their coolness is balanced by you have to always have these noble intents and these noble actions. So you can't really play a chaotic character who's just about getting their own and shutting down anybody who tries to get in their way. You don't really have that freedom when you're playing a Solnar. So that's the Solnars. Thank you.